The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mind Garden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions.
Oh my gosh.
Hi.
I love that. Like, you surprise me every single week with a new backdrop. I love that one.
Our good friend John did that for us. The person who designed our logo did a new intro and backdrop for us. And
oh my gosh. I love it.
outro.
Love it. He's
Yeah.
amazing. John Sang is the man. The man.
Yeah. Just got that today. So
big thanks to him. And I can't pronounce the name of his page, but I put it in our audio podcast notes on the Sandy and Toddcast Facebook page every week. So if you're looking for somebody to do a logo, to do any kind of work like that for you, you definitely need to check him out.
thanks to everybody saying hi tonight. We're glad you're
Hi,
along.
guys.
If you're listening, if you're watching, let us know tonight. We'll try and throw your name up there. And if you're watching from the Stay Weirdos Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast, you will come up as a Facebook user unless you go into your Facebook and you say, yes, you can share my information in situations like that. And I won't mention it again tonight. So
Yeah. And if you don't want to do that, if you think it's too
That's
much,
fine.
just kind of maybe type your name in one of the comments so we at least know who it is who's here with us. That would be awesome. So, but hi, Renee. Hi, Vicky. Jessica's with us tonight. And I like Crazy Elfie. Yes. Is that Amy Lynn? And so I'm just excited for tonight. And we even have a panelist with us tonight.
yeah, we'll have him out in just a bit. Them out in just a bit. We're talking about Eron Mazza, who's here tonight.
Yep.
And they're joining us on the panel because of a couple of reasons. They've got a brand new podcast, which
Yeah.
we're going to help to promote tonight.
Yep.
And we want everybody to listen to. They're going to be part of the panel while you go through your Sandy Cemeteries.
Yeah.
And later on, they're going to pull some cards for people.
Yeah. So you guys want to stick around? We might go. There's Jared. Time to party. You might want to stick around because not only do we have a night filled with some great history and folklore and legends and ghost stories, but then we're going to do some cards with Eron. So that should be really cool.
Should be really cool.
Jason,
I have to apologize right off the bat. Can I tell you a really quick story?
Yes.
So tonight I'm completely blind. Like I cannot see what I'm pretty much doing tonight.
Why?
Well, I wear contacts when I
Right.
need to. Otherwise I
Right.
wear glasses and stuff like that. But when we do the podcast, I wear contacts because the glare on the screens and stuff, it just doesn't look good. So earlier this week, you know how I've got the contacts that you throw out after you're supposed to wear them like a week and then throw them
the
out.
disposable kind of ones. Yeah.
I wear them like, yeah, I wear them like for a month because I don't wear them every day.
Right.
So I had these packages for a long time and I finally got down and I was wearing the same pair for a while because I only had one more pair left. So you wear that second to last pair forever.
Yep.
And it kills your eyes. It really hurt. Like the last time we did a podcast was the last time I wore contacts and they were killing my eyes.
Right.
So at any rate, so I thought, well, you know what, this week, I had a meeting on like Tuesday.
Right.
And so for work. And so I thought, I'll put the contacts and I'll put fresh ones in, but I've got to make an eye appointment because I can't get new ones until, that happens. And so I went ahead and I took the new one out from my right eye. Now I have monovision in my contacts. So that means one eye is set so that I can see far away. And the other eye is set so that I can see like computer screens about this far. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So it's not for far away, but that's how it works. Well, I put the right one in. Everything's great. I open up the other one. Now, here's what I did. I took the old ones and I just threw them in the sink. So I was just wash them down the sink. That's what I do.
Okay.
So I dumped them in the sink and they were sitting there. So I put my right one in. That's great. I go to put the new left one in and it drops off into the sink. So I think I know which one it is. I pick it up, clean it off, pop it in. I got to get to my meeting. There's only like a couple of minutes. So I get in the meeting and I realize that I must have grabbed the old one for my right eye. So right now, both eyes are set for distance. So I cannot see. I know you are. I can't see a freaking thing in front of me right now.
Oh my God.
I could probably see into next week if I went outside. I could see the future with these damn things, but I can hardly read anything on the screen. So if I'm squinting, it's because I'm really trying to.
So, but let me ask you this. Would it help if you took one out?
No, because I can't see. I would have to be this close to see. Because you're completely
bad. All right.
Yeah. Like my eyes are so bad that I have to be this close.
God.
So I thought, well, I'll wear my glasses tonight, right?
Right.
Put those
on.
My thought. And no, I can't do that either because it looked, I couldn't, no, it was just bad.
Oh my
because
God.
my glasses now, like when I'm working and stuff with computers, I have to pull them down to the edge of my nose, not because I have to look over the top, but because I can see clear. I mean, my eyes are just freaking horrible.
You better make the appointment as soon as you can. As soon as you can. I can kind of relate though, because since I was 16, either 16 or 17, and of course I'm almost 51, I have had what they call the semi-hard lenses, the gas permeable lenses.
Is that what you have now?
Yeah. I've my whole life, except for 1 year. 1 year, I convinced my eye doctor I wanted to try the disposables, and they were the month-long ones. And I kept them for a year, but they drove me so crazy, and I would do that too. But I used them all the time.
Yeah.
And I'd use them as long as I could because I didn't want to keep spending all the money.
So your gas perms, do they have the bifocals in them?
Yeah. Yeah. I
How does that work?
have bifocal lenses. Your eyes get really used to them. Everybody told me, it's going to take a few days. I have regular bifocal glasses. And then
you should see those. Those are beautiful.
Oh, stop. You can't even tell
Sophia Petrillo
difference.
From the Golden Girls.
It's not like the old days. It's not like the old bifocals. You can't even see anything in them. My grandmother had them and you could see the little circle. These, you can't even see anything. And they told me it'd take a few days for the contacts. Right away, I was fine. It was great. And I really like it. Because I have to kind of hold things out, and that's normal. But I really like them. I didn't even know they made bifocal contact lenses. But I do love the gas perms because they're not the traditional hard lenses like they used to have.
Yeah, I used to wear those too.
Yeah, they're more rigid, and I just love them. And like he said, when I went back the next year and said, I want to go back to my other ones.
That's her glasses. If you've ever seen her in her glasses,
true.
That's what she looks like.
But yet, as an aside, I want to strangle you every time you take pictures of us when we're just recording for the audio cast and you're taking pictures of us and you put it up on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks.
You looked fine.
Yeah, whatever.
You looked absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, whatever. So I'm sorry about that.
That I can't see?
Sucks. Yeah.
Well, so I'm going to do my best to follow along. You have a script tonight that we're using for your stories, and I just don't know if I'm going to be able to. Yeah, I'm going to do my best to follow along.
We'll just play around with it.
And there's 100 pictures, and so it's all very small print here, and I'm going to do my best. But
not 100 pictures, and I think they're all in order, aren't they?
They are, but I have to try and see the small pictures,
Well, I'll tell you what number to put up or something.
I normally do the same thing, Jessica, but my problem is my eyes have gotten so weird. Like I used to work on my house a lot, and now I can't do a lot of projects because in order for me to use a hammer, I have to take my glasses off and then get really close to it and do that kind of thing. So I have if you wear contacts and the negative number that your contacts are, mine is negative 7.5.
Wow.
So that's pretty deep on this eye. And then I wear negative 5.5 on this one so that I can kind of,
Well, it's funny. I used to make a joke. I can't make that joke anymore, but I'm diabetic and I have retinopathy, and it finally decided to rear its ugly head. And so last week I started the maybe for the rest of my life, every couple months, eye injections for the retinopathy.
Right.
And, but I used to make the joke, I have retinopathy, but it's not affecting my eyesight yet. It's just I have horrible vision anyways, which is true. Like, I have terrible vision. I can see things to make things out, but there's no detail. Everything's pretty much a blur in my world without corrective lenses.
What's the movie about the witch, the Blair Witch Project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I understand, but she was totally Blair Witching it last week when she was talking about like the getting the
injections.
Yeah.
I was scared. I didn't know what to expect, but actually by the next day, I was better.
You were doing good. Yeah.
I was actually, it took me about 3 I should have had you put up the picture. My eyes were kind of red and they hurt a lot because they put this antiseptic in them to clean them and to kill the bacteria. And they numb your eye to give you the injections. It's not anything nearly what you're imagining right now. It's fine. It's easy. The hard part is when the numbing stuff wears off, and then the antiseptic that they use just burns your eyes. So for a couple hours, I just laid in bed and listened to a podcast with my eyes closed because
was it one of our podcasts?
It was hard to see. No, I listened to our stuff though, but I was just listening to something. I've been reading on Audible the book about Ed Gein, so that's really good.
I think you might have an obsession with Ed Gein. I'm
trying to learn as much as I can about it because, like I said, it's becoming really personal for me. So it's because of what I experienced and everything when we were out there, and the stuff that you and I experienced together about a month ago after the fact. So it's becoming personal to me, and I kind of want to understand more about what really went on. And the book is interesting because a lot of the stuff that people think happened really didn't happen.
Right.
It all became sort of legends and stories, and some of that stuff never happened. So, it's a good book. But yeah, so I just listened to stuff and little odds and ends of things. My eye was a little bit sore. The one eye was a little bit sore for a day or so. And, but otherwise I was fine. I'm back to normal now. I'm absolutely fine. I have to go in December for my next set. And if that's what it takes to keep my sight, that's what it takes to keep my sight. That's what I'm going to do. So.
All right. If you know somebody who's a big fan of Eron and his readings, make sure and reach out to them tonight and let them know that they are on. Because we're going to get to that a little bit later on. But first, we've got to bring them out and have them be part of our little group here. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're glad to welcome them. Go ahead.
The Eron Mazza.
Hey.
Hey. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
This is the truth. So I'm sitting here before the podcast like an hour before it starts because I had some extra work to do. And I came down to my studio and I was working on stuff and I had turned my camera on to try and, you got to see to make sure everything's in the right location and stuff. And my eyesight's so bad. So it took me longer to do some of the work that I had to do. And Eron, comes on and they say, I just popped in for a second. So I look and I could see that he was, that they were in here. And then all of a sudden they popped back in. And then we sat and talked for 40 minutes before you showed up. And the entire time they kept saying, is she showing up tonight? Is she showing up tonight?
Because I showed up on the right time. Let's talk about that really quickly. How come every time, Eron, you come on the show, we have to tell you 3 times what that means St. Louis time?
It's not my fault you all live in weird time zones.
I live in the same time zone you do. And
I've
said that over and over and over. I'm like, Eron, we're in the same time zone. So, be aware of that. Yeah. And I even said today, for you, it's going to be, this is when we're getting together. 40 minutes early. There they are. Hi.
I showed up and Todd was looking like this.
This is great.
I actually
he looked like a little old man trying to put together a cabinet from IKEA.
See, that's why he needed those socks I got him. Those socks that say grumpy old man. That's why you needed them.
I wasn't sure if it was Eron or if it was you. I just figured Eron had a little bit more hair on their face. That's why. So
thanks. I don't think I have any hair on my face.
I'm just teasing.
So, all right. Are you Are you ready?
Yeah, we can do this.
Talk?
Well, first of all, let's just mention this because let's mention this first. Let's mention the brand new podcast.
How cool is that?
It's very cool. And Erin is going to be part of the Mind Garden Media family.
Yep.
And you've got the producer right up there. I'm talking about Sandy. She's producing it for him and helping him get audio together for it. It's called The Witching Hour with Eron Mazza. And actually, your first one just came out, kind of an introductory kind of podcast.
Yes,
why don't you tell us about that?
The very first episode is just a bit to wet your whistle about what the podcast is going to be about. And I don't want to reveal too much, but the first podcast just gives you sort of like my resume or my curriculum vitae, I think that's what it's called, about how I got involved in the craft and how it's changed for me in the years that I've been practicing. And I hope to inspire some and edify others who were, if you're starting out or are a seasoned practitioner, check it out. Plus,
they've already got some they've really got some great ideas. There's an author that they're thinking about having on, and
Yay.
I mean, I would even love to have that author on our podcast as well, because I think they have a lot to offer. But if you kind of enjoy what the Sandy and Toddcast is about, but you want to take it to the next level, especially when it comes to witchcraft and stuff like that, I think you're going to want to check out the podcast. So we'll talk about that again at the end, but
that's
definitely
sort of like a real deep dive into witchcraft and the community surrounding the witchy world. And I think that's really cool. And I'm very excited for you. And I can't wait to see what we develop together. I think it's going to be really good. So welcome to the Mind Garden Media family.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm everyone's little brother, or little sibling again.
Erin was really excited that he was going to get the little tagline that says "Screw you, Todd" on the beginning of his podcast each time too. So,
I wanted to make sure that they were okay with it, and they said yes. So
awesome.
All right,
Never
so let's
to say "Screw you, Todd."
Maybe we'll change it so it's your voice that says "Screw you, Todd" on it. I think maybe that's what we'll do. I think that'll be a good thing. All right, let's dive into your cemetery.
Everybody that we handle should be able to say "Screw you, Todd" in their own voice.
Listen, I'm sure they already do. We don't have to broadcast it.
All right. Okay, so I just wanted to share some great stories, some history with you guys tonight. When Dave and I came out to Chicago in September, and then on to meet Todd in Oshkosh a couple days later, we went to two. Well, actually, I take that back. We went to a few cemeteries, but these were the two that really meant the most to me. Graceland Cemetery in Chicago, right down the street from the one and only Nuts on Clark.
Are you kidding me?
Todd makes fun of me for. There it is. There it is. I took a picture of it as we were there. It's literally right down the street, probably, I don't know, quarter of a mile down the street from Nuts on Clark. And we went there. We drove around by Wrigley Field and took some pictures. And then I said, Dave, we have to go to Graceland Cemetery. Graceland Cemetery to me is sort of like the Hollywood of cemeteries.
Really nice and glitzy. Is that what you're trying to say?
It is. It really is. There was a lot of money there. There was a lot of money, a lot of well-known politicians and businessmen and all kinds of people who were very prominent in Chicago and the surrounding areas back in the day. There's so many beautiful hidden treasures in this cemetery. And of course, back then, more so than ever, in the 1800s, the more money you had, the bigger your stone was for the most part. You know, some people were a little more humble, others not at all. So Graceland is the final resting place to many different prominent Chicago figures, athletes, politicians, industrialists, many of the finest architects that you could find at the time. There's 150 years of history in this cemetery. Absolutely gorgeous, huge. Todd, I think you had the map up a minute ago.
Yep.
And
not to be confused with the Graceland that has Elvis in it.
Like you.
Right.
Thank you very much. All right.
Right. And every time I say it, both of us think of that at the same time. Now, that cemetery is huge. Huge enough that Dave and I actually got lost, had to find our way back to the beginning so that we could go the other way and try and find some of these graves. Still active today. It was established in 1816 by Thomas Bryan. He was a lawyer with a very successful Chicago practice. It was originally 80 acres, but now it's 119 acres. It's in what they call a Victorian. I think you're ahead of me. It's.
I don't know. I just saw 1844. 1844. No. Great. Okay.
No, go back.
All right.
That's a sweet poncho you got on.
It's in what they call. Thank you. Thank you. It's in what they call. Are you going to let me talk? Oh
yes,
God.
Talk. That's great.
Jason says, how does Dave feel about my obsession with Clark's nuts? He had a lot of Clark's nuts too, believe me. So it's
Sharing
beautiful. It's in what they call a Victorian Park style. It's in the center of it. There's this gorgeous man-made lake. It's called Lake Willowmere. And there is a footbridge to a small island where the Burnham family is buried. And we'll talk about the Burnhams in just a few minutes. But gorgeous manufactured lawns, beautiful streets. Each street within the cemetery has its own street sign. Just absolutely beautiful. Okay, now you can put up that big picture, Todd.
Okay, hold on. This one? All right.
One. Okay, so let's talk about
Is that the nun from the movie behind you there? What is that?
No. Oh, my gosh. What a great story this is. Okay, this is the grave of, ironically, Dexter Graves. This is probably, they call it sort of the pièce de résistance of the Graceland Cemetery, because this is probably the most well-known grave there is in that cemetery, next to Inez, but we'll talk about Inez at the end. Dexter Graves was born in 1793. He died in 1845. The monument commemorates Dexter, who in 1831 led a group of 13 families from Ohio to settle in Chicago. When he died in 1844, it was 75 years before the statue's creation and 16 years before Graceland Cemetery was founded. His body was presumably relocated from its original resting place at the Old City Cemetery, which is now the site of Lincoln Park. We've all heard of Lincoln Park.
Right.
Lincoln Park now has a zoo on part of it, but they never exhumed most of the bodies at Lincoln Park. So there's actually a zoo built on top of an old graveyard in Lincoln Park.
A lot of animals.
I know, right? And now the zoo is said to be haunted. And what's interesting is I really wanted to get there. We just didn't have enough time because we were only there for a couple days. But that was the lead in. I really wanted to see that. So Dexter's son, Henry, who died in 1907, provided $250,000 in funds for the monument. It's a bronze figure, and it's called Eternal Silence.
Ugh.
It was created by Lorado Taft in 1909 on black granite. This thing is monstrous, and it's almost right by the entrance. And when you see it, it's so imposing and large. I was almost nervous, and you know me, I'm a cemetery nut job. I even got a little bit nervous to go up there because it is so imposing. Now, the copper is oxidized. You can see that it's turned green. And Graceland used to try to restore it several times, in fact. But people complained and wanted it kept its natural greenish color, which
that's the way it's supposed to be, right?
It looks a little more distinguished.
And it kind of adds to the spookiness of it. It's considered famous and has been noted as Graceland Cemetery's most unforgettable monument. Now, I'm 5'4". When I stand next to that thing, it's huge. Like, it's crazy how big it is. Now, there's...
Give it Holly asked. Yes, and she walked right into it, Holly. She went right into the mist.
I'm happy to say there was no mist at Graceland Cemetery that day. I don't usually get too much at cemeteries because, like I said, I just go with respect, and I don't really look for too much energy in the cemeteries. I also don't believe there's a lot of activity in the cemeteries, although when we get to Bachelor's Grove, that's a whole different story. But anyways, let's go back to Dexter. The folklore surrounding Dexter's grave is, according to one tale, if you look into the eyes of the statue's hooded figure, you will see a vision of your own death.
Oh.
Another states that the statue can't be photographed, but hundreds of pictures, obviously, are on the internet, and one accompanying the story would say otherwise. The way the figure partially hides his face with one arm also spooks people out a lot. I will say this. I did not see my own death when I looked into its eyes, but it is extremely creepy. I will say, I don't know if that was the intention, but it certainly works.
So I can't see
it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's what I was going to ask. Is there a face?
What you can just see is he's covered like this. So you can just see this much. So from the nose up, and then the hood comes over. So you only see that, and that's all black. So you literally are like, uh-oh. I didn't hang out there too long. I really didn't, because
she was only there long enough to dance on a few graves, and then she walked away.
No dance,
open up
no
mysterious
grave
boxes she finds in trees and stuff like that.
That's right. See, everybody knows you're crap.
I know. So there is a plaque on the back that provides a lot of information on the statue itself, as well as the family members who are buried there with Dexter. So just a super, super cool statue. I don't know that the ghost stories surrounding it are true. It didn't happen to me. I kind of hoped something weird would happen, but nothing did. But it was just really, really cool. So the next person I want to talk about is Daniel Elston and his family. Elston was a British merchant. He came to Chicago and manufactured soap, candles, and erected a distillery and a brewery. A lot of these business people dabbled in many different kinds of things in Chicago. They didn't just stay in one thing. There were real estate people who dabbled in lumber and so on and so forth. It was really interesting, the dynamic there was back in the 1800s in Chicago. He was a school inspector, an alderman. He lost his offices when his lands were removed from the city bounds by the legislator. Elston Avenue in Chicago is named for him. He died of typhoid fever in 1855. Oof. I know. His inscription reads, "He giveth his beloved sleep." Now, Daniel is the big one there to the right. There's 4, as you can notice, and they kind of look like, crypts, coffins, sort of. Buried with him are his wife, Blanche, and his children, Byron, who died at the age of 6. So that's the next smallest one. And the little tiny one is Alice. She passed away at the age of 1. My guess is that probably from sickness, because there were so many sicknesses back in those days.
Absolutely.
People didn't live too old. If you lived into your 60s, sometimes that was considered old age. So it's just a haunting and sad sort of story. The next one is really cool. The next one is really cool.
That's the kind of burial. That's what I want. When I get buried, I want that.
These things, literally, you guys, are monstrous. They're monstrous. Like, I took that from the car. Like, it's huge. It's just unbelievably large. I can only imagine how much this cost. But before I go any further, talking about the Greek temple at the Palmer Mausoleum, I am going to set the scene on this one pretty quickly. The 1978 movie Damien, Omen 2 used this mausoleum in a scene.
Makes sense.
So they actually filmed a scene of Damien, Omen 2 at that mausoleum. The remains of Potter and Bertha Palmer are located here. You can see the 2 big crypts in the middle of it. Mr. Palmer was a merchant in Chicago. He eventually sold his successful business to none other than Marshall Field, who's also buried at Graceland. He then went into real estate. So Marshall Field, we all know Marshall Field, is also buried in Graceland. A lot of prominent names. Many visitors over the years have reported that standing in the mausoleum fills them with dread. They get really creepy feelings when they're standing. I think personally it's probably more just because the thing is so large and it is kind of creepy, probably when you're in the middle of it.
Right.
There are reports that the area is eerily quiet and even colder than the rest of the cemetery. It was a pretty warm day, I got to say, so nothing really stood out for me, but I'm sure that, so it's probably 50%, maybe something weird goes on, and then 50%, it's just your mind.
Well, if you look at that picture, it's kind of in the shade. and you're surrounded by, cooling, probably cement and all, whatever it's made of, I guess.
Yep.
I would think it probably would be a little bit cooler in that section than it would be if you were out in the sun.
People just want a good ghost story, and I can't blame them. Everybody wants a good ghost story. Here's a fun fact about it, though. This is kind of neat. The 2 tombs that the Palmers are lying in are the same exact size as the tomb of Alexander the Great.
Oh.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of weird? I just thought that was neat. So that would be the Greek temple for the Palmer family. Okay. So next up, we go to the Getty Tomb. That's Mr. Getty himself.
Hello, I'm Mr. Getty. Let me comb my mustache.
I love finding the pictures of.
Come here and brush off my lapel for me, Nancy.
It just kind of adds to it, doesn't it? Like now you can see what these people actually looked like back then. I just love finding
the guy from the diabetes test strips commercial.
He does too, Wilford Brimley.
Oatmeal's good for you.
His tomb was actually designated a Chicago landmark in 1971. So the tomb itself was considered a Chicago landmark. It is considered to be probably one of the more prominent tombs of all of the fine monuments in Graceland. And it was commissioned by a lumber merchant, by Mr. Getty. His name was Henry Harrison Getty, for his wife, Carrie Eliza. Do you have that one, Todd? The picture of the tomb?
Is that it?
That's it. Yep, that's it. This is kind of neat. Okay, so it was designed by Louis Sullivan, who's also buried at Graceland. A lot of the architects who built these, and a lot of them have the same architects. There's probably a handful of architects, but most of them are also buried at Graceland. And it's really interesting because the architects, he does kind of. Most of the architects don't have anywhere near the crazy huge tombs that they designed for others. So it's just kind of ironic that they had pretty humble burial stones. This is kind of neat. Now, I'm from Central New York State. Mr. Getty was born in Batavia, New York, and his wife, Carrie, was born in Norway. Henry died in Paris in 1919. Carrie died in 1890. That's why he did the tomb for her. Mr. Getty is buried in the tomb with his wife, along with their daughter, Alice. And a little bit of a ghost story here is that people have reported that when you go up to the gates and you look in the gates, because the tombs go back in pretty far and it's very dark, that it just looks like they lead to nothing. They lead to emptiness, black emptiness. And a few people have actually noted that they've seen someone walking around inside of it. Ooh. Which, of course, the gates are obviously locked. So that's where that little ghosty story comes from.
Okay.
Got it? Good?
Yep.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about this beautiful lake in the middle of the cemetery. It's a man-made lake. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's called Lake Willowmere. And I had to get out of the car. We did get out of the car several times. Some of them, though, like the Palmers, the Mausoleum, I didn't get out of the car because they were actually digging a grave across the street, and I didn't really want to hang out there. But we did get out for a lot of them. So there's me taking this really cool picture with Lake Willowmere. And Todd, I think we have a video.
We do.
Can you play that video for me?
Let me just say this. This girl is working me tonight.
I know. I love it that you can't see, moly. So it makes it even better.
It's like having Mr. Magoo running all the media.
Roadhog! And you guys don't probably even understand what that is. All right. Let me share this here.
Todd. I know the classics.
You? Hold on. I got to get rid of her face. Let's see if he can
do it. Let's see if he can do it.
You be nice to me. Stand by.
So, as if this cemetery isn't amazing enough, there's a beautiful pond right in the middle of it. This is Graceland Cemetery in Chicago, one of the oldest cemeteries that there is. This cemetery actually has coyotes in it. They stay away from people. We haven't seen any coyotes yet, but there are several pictures and videos of coyotes in the park. They let them stay because they also help with population control of some of the smaller rodents. And they're not hurting anybody. They stay away from people, mind their own business. They're beautiful creatures anyways.
There you go.
So yeah, the coyotes are really cool. There are tons. You can look it up online, Graceland Cemetery coyotes, and people take pictures of them. Some of the most beautiful ones are of them during the fall and winter. And it's hard to imagine there'd be coyotes right in the middle of Chicago, but they live there. They've lived there for years, and they let them stay there. And I was hoping to see some, but it was a really warm day, so they probably stay in the wooded areas on the outskirts for the most part, because we were there at like 11 in the morning. But it's a beautiful, beautiful cemetery. It's truly what you think of back in the day when you hear stories about people having picnics in cemeteries and spending the day in a cemetery. That's the Victorian Park setting. That's what that was built for. That's the way that was supposed to look. So the interesting thing about Willowmere Cemetery is that there is that footbridge that goes from one side of it across to a little island. And on that island is a family that's buried there. They are the Burnham family. And the footbridge was recently refurbished, and that's where World's Fair architect. So everybody's heard about the World's Fair in Chicago. This Mr. Burnham was the architect for the World's Fair. And his ghost has been reported frequently after his death instead of before his death. But few knew who the ghost was until the publication of The Devil in the White City. That talked all about Mr. Burnham and who was there on the island. People didn't really know at that time. And when that book came out, that's when it kind of hit everybody. People will see him standing on the banks of his island with his hands in his pockets, much like that picture that Todd has up there now. So I just thought that was a really...
Brush my mustache, please.
I love it. Like Theodore Roosevelt.
Doesn't he? Right? He does. And it's interesting, like, that's why I love the picture so much, because you get to put a real face to these people. It's not just a story. Now it's a real person who lived. And that's what people say they see standing on the bank of the island. And I just thought it was a really cool story, with or without ghost story, because, you know, who gets buried on their own little man-made island? I think it's kind of cool.
I want that too. I want the whole big thing. And then, you know, is there a child buried on the island? Holly asks.
I just know that it's his family. There wasn't a ton of information. I should have checked Find a Grave, which is like my cemetery Bible. I would assume so, because I know his wife is there, and I'm sure his children are there with him as well. So very cool.
Yeah, Find a Grave is kind of like her class reunion book kind of.
Oh my God! Seriously, like
yes,
yeah, true. Yeah, Find a Grave to me is like the Bible for cemeteries. I can find so much information through Find a Grave; it's ridiculous. And I used it a lot for Bachelor's Grove. Yeah, it is. I used it a lot for Bachelor's Grove, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But so then there was Mr. Pullman. Now, George Pullman, everybody has heard, or I hope everybody's heard of the Pullman train car.
Sure.
He was famous for coming up with the Pullman train car. He was an American engineer and industrialist. He was born in Brockton, New York, another New Yorker. And Todd and we discussed this a while back about how a lot of New Englanders, New Yorkers ended up in Illinois, in Wisconsin, and they did. And there's a great story I'll tell you guys at Bachelor's Grove, too, about that happening. And he was born in Brockton, New York in 1831. He designed and manufactured the Pullman sleeping car. And he founded a company town called Pullman for the workers who manufactured it. He set up this entire town. Yeah, like this entire town for his workers. They had everything you can imagine. And one of the ideas is that he still haunts the town today. Now, the houses, like the row houses he made for his workers, are actually now apartments and things. So people live in them. Oh. It's a regular town. If anybody watches Adam Selzer Mysterious Chicago tours, he does a lot of virtual tours. He's gone to Pullman a few times and walked around and shown it. And It's actually pretty cool. The thing about Mr. Pullman, though,
he didn't have a mustache, but he had a big old beard.
He sure did. Isn't that magnificent? That's glorious.
Like he couldn't afford a mustache. God, they must have missed.
I know, right? That's the style back then, though. It's just amazing to me. When a Pullman car was attached to the funeral train carrying Abraham Lincoln's body, demand for Pullman's products surged. Of course they did. And which, just an aside, actually, Lincoln's funeral train came right through Utica, New York, right near where I live, which I always thought was fascinating because I go by those tracks all the time. And I think, oh my gosh, Abraham Lincoln's funeral train was on there. But anyways, that was just an aside. But the Pullman Sleeping Car Company, after it surged, grew really, really quickly. And he was also known for hiring African-American men to staff the Pullman cars. And they became known and widely respected, very much respected, as Pullman porters, providing elite service. So he was known as a very kind man at that time, someone who really, gave everyone an opportunity. But unfortunately, in the 1890s, his business started to decline and he turned into a real asshole, unfortunately.
Don't we all?
He cut a lot of wages. He fired workers who went against him in any way. He was so hated by his employees that when he died in 1897, his heirs feared that the body would be stolen and held for ransom. The coffin was covered in tar paper and asphalt and enclosed in the center of a room-sized block of concrete reinforced with railroad ties. Ambrose Bierce, who is well known at the time, said, quote, "It is clear the family in the bereavement was making sure the son of a bitch wasn't going to get up and come back." So
there you go.
So it is quite the sight to see this grave.
Was that his grave that I had up?
Yeah, that was his grave. And he's like deep down in there underneath.
In a room-sized casket, or like a room-sized enclosure of concrete.
Yeah, and then they built that thing on top of it. So there was no way that they were going to
that too. Can you have that done for me? So I want the other one that we saw, and then I want this one for sure.
Okay.
Oh,
and then I definitely
Todd, we're just going to put you in a shoebox.
I want
that.
Like my goldfish whenever I was a kid.
One of these. Yeah, make sure and overfeed me too so I explode like a goldfish. That'll be great.
I want one of these.
I'm not going to say it's a little late for that, but.
So, all right. Oh my gosh. All right. Let's move on to Martin Ryerson's tomb. Do you have Mr. Ryerson's tomb? I think that was Mr. Ryerson.
Cute.
That's Ryerson, and then this is his tomb.
There we go.
Cool. I want that one too.
That was very cool. That caught my eye immediately. That Martin Ryerson was a wealthy Chicago lumber baron and real estate speculator. So see what I mean? Like they didn't do just one thing. They did many things, these businessmen. And they were very prominent in Chicago because they kind of dipped their toes in everything.
I want to be known as the podcast baron. Can I be a podcast baron? Wouldn't that be cool?
Why not? Sure. Why not?
Oh.
Screw you, Todd, the podcast
Screw
baron.
you, Todd. So,
He'll be as iconic as the Friskies cat, Todd.
They'll have to bury me in a room-sized thing of concrete because I'm going to be a podcast baron.
We'll just pour concrete in that studio. What do you think?
Perfect.
There you go.
You guys keep it up tonight.
You could be like Pompeii, where they have like the bodies like this.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
We'll just pour some concrete in there.
Okay.
So he was born in 1818. He died in 1887. And during his lifetime, he and his son, Martin Ryerson Jr., commissioned several Chicago works by architect Louis Sullivan. There's that name again, including this tomb commissioned by Martin Ryerson Jr. in 1887. This thing is unbelievably amazing. It is a true work of art. Yeah, it is. It's like there are so many. There's such a variety of tombs in this cemetery, but this one is like nothing that we had seen yet. It's in a category all its own. I really have to say, it's among the most important Egyptian revival works in the United States to this day. The Ryerson tomb is a contributing member of the Graceland Cemetery National Register of Historic Places listing. So that's on the list as well. And it is just fascinating. A lot of them, I have to say, unfortunately, either they were bricked up at the time, or they were just bricked up later when there were no more burials that were going to be done in there, when everything. And so a lot of them you can't see them. Believe me, I tried. But
of course
we do have some pictures and also a video of some of the vaults that I saw, which were super cool. Very, very cool.
Just picturing Sandy in her black and white poncho trying to climb up the top of that one.
Oh my God.
Of that one.
Oh my God. I was like all about these things.
That's a picture of her. She just got down from being on top, Erin.
I was climbing around on top, but Dave wouldn't take pictures of me. So these vaults are really, really neat. They are more prominent people. And I didn't go into obviously everybody there, but there were doctors and lawyers and, very prominent business people that are in this row. It's the only row in the whole cemetery. And they're very, very cool. And of course, this one was open. So I got to take some pictures of that because I thought that was kind of neat, because you don't get to see inside of them very often. So there is a video I took. I think, Todd, I forgot to do it sideways for you, though. So this one is up and down.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out.
I know.
Hey, guys, Dave and I are at Graceland Cemetery in Chicago, and this place is absolutely amazing. We found some really cool stuff, and I think we'll probably do a Sandy and Toddcast about it at some point in the future. So I wanted to shoot some video to show you some of the crypts that are sort of like on a little pathway here. And if anybody has heard me talking about Mysterious Chicago Tours and Adam Seltzer, he's been giving virtual tours of Chicago cemeteries and ghost tours for quite a while now, since the pandemic started. And so I used to watch all of his virtual tours, and lo and behold, now we're in Chicago, and one of the tours that he would give is of Graceland Cemetery. So I couldn't go to Chicago without visiting Graceland. And this is just an amazing, amazing place to be. I just wanted to give you some views of some of these crypts. This is unbelievable. And thanks to Adam,
I want those.
I learned a little more about them. And the families, some of the families that are buried here, and some of the stories behind them, and I'll be able to share them with everybody at a future time. But I just wanted to show you how cool these are, and how much history can be found in a cemetery. Let's see if we can look inside this
Oh my
one.
God, she's going to try and look inside.
Not sure.
I did.
Well, we can see in here. Let's see if you guys can see
Suddenly
it.
see this crowbar go flying across the screen.
It's going to be kind of dark. But there they are. There they are. Right inside the crypts. Just phenomenal.
Somebody was watching her while she was doing this.
You
and they're
bet.
like, why is that woman
And I'll have some
filming
other
the
pictures
graves?
that we can show and share. Some other video too. This is just a view. It's a very, very large cemetery. Just absolutely phenomenal.
Do you see those little gravestones? Like you saw the big vaults, and then on the other side there was these little gravestones. They're about that'll be me. Like
there were,
but I'll have something about this big that just says Todd on it.
There were a lot of small ones in there too.
Screw you,
They
Todd.
weren't. Screw you, Todd.
That's right. That's what it's.
That's what it's gonna say. Well, Dave wants to have the Yankees suck on his. But there were small ones, a lot of small ones. Not by no means was everything in that cemetery huge. There were a lot of German immigrants in that cemetery. There were, and And at the end of this portion of the night, in just a couple of minutes, there's also some random pictures that I took that'll show you guys, really interesting ones. And so it's just a really cool place to go. The last kind of ghosty story and weird legend story that I want to share with everybody is about little Inez Clark. Now, this is when I said we got lost and we had to go back to the beginning and start over. That was because we were trying to find Inez's grave, but we went right past it. That's how easy it is.
How do you pass that up and not see it?
Because it was just enough off the road that we didn't see it, because we were looking. It's almost across the street from the vaults. So when we were looking at the vaults from the what?
From Nuts on Clark.
From Nuts on Clark. It was just down a little bit from Nuts on Clark. So it's an interesting story about her because nobody really knows for sure exactly what happened any step of the way. The story goes she was struck down in her girlhood either by tuberculosis or a lightning bolt.
What?
So, yeah, those are the two prominent versions of how this poor little girl passed away. She was buried in Graceland by her devastated parents, who proceeded to commission a statue of their little girl for the gravesite. The monument will definitely tug at your heartstrings, and I mean that. Like, it's so sad to look at this.
I'm sorry, that does not make me sad. That creeps me the heck out.
When you are standing there, it is sad. When you're standing there, and especially if you know the story. Like, I went there knowing the story of this of Inez. And so I already knew the story. Years ago, reports began to circulate that the statue had come up missing one night, only to be found right back in place the next morning. That's how all the ghosty stories started. Apparently, this happened several times until, according to the story, the glass case was placed over the monument to prevent further theft. Now, if you're going to steal it, why are you bringing it back the next day? I'm not really sure what's going on here.
Are they saying the statue was coming to life?
The statue was actually disappearing. The little girl was disappearing at night and coming back in the morning. That was several accounts of it. And a security guard making his rounds discovered the empty case one night, despite it being securely anchored to the base. So he left the cemetery and didn't go back.
I would say that.
Yeah, that's how creeped out he was. Accounts differ as to whether Inez's statue began disappearing before or after her monument was encased in glass. Those who attest to her death by lightning say she only disappears during violent storms, perhaps seeking shelter from the lightning, the frightening weather. Those who credit her death to tuberculosis say she runs off at random. Occasionally, a visitor will claim to have seen a child who wanders and disappears among the graves near the Clark Monument, and stories tell of children visiting the cemetery with their families who wander off only to be found near the statue, uttering claims that they were playing with the little girl in the box. So there's I took a few pictures. We spent a little bit of time there. That's her grandparents on the left, I believe. And I believe it's her sibling on the right. There's a few different stories about that, too. Now, cemetery records do show that a child was buried in that spot in August of 1818, but that the child's name was actually Amos Briggs. So this is where everything gets interesting. No Inez Clark exists in Graceland's records at all. So nobody can figure out how Amos got buried in Inez's gravestone if this is in fact the case. In 2009, Chicago historian John Binder got to the bottom of the confusing mystery behind Graceland's most famous ghost. The Inez who was buried here was Inez Briggs, who died of diphtheria at the age of 6 in August of 1880. Her death certificate specifies Graceland as the intended burial site. So Binder thinks that the names Inez and Amos had been mixed up in the cemetery records.
Right.
He found that at the time of her death, Inez was living with her mother, Mary McClure, and her grandparents, David and Jane Rothrock. By 1872, Inez's father, Walter Briggs, was gone, and Mary wed John Clark. That's where Inez Clark comes from. But back in those days, if you weren't, they don't know for sure that she ever actually divorced Inez's father. So she couldn't say that her name was
Clark. Right.
So that's where a lot of the discrepancy also comes in. Although Inez was not his daughter, the family had that carved on her tombstone, leading to almost a century and a half of mystery. So there's so many stories surrounding this poor little girl. The mystery of Inez's name seems to have been solved, but nobody's 100% sure. Her ghost may not have been laid to rest either. There's a lot of stories about people seeing this little girl all throughout that section of the cemetery. So we don't know if she still wanders on stormy nights, hiding from the lightning, defying,
Please tell me that you didn't climb on top of that though, did you?
No, I stood next to it though, because I thought that was like a really, really cool. It was a beautiful piece of work. It really was. It was absolutely gorgeous. Right. So there are a few, can you put up, I just have a few random pictures I wanted to show everybody of some of the other stones at the cemetery.
Absolutely. I shall do that for you, ma'am.
Can you see them? Because you're squinty.
Because I'm trying to see what I'm looking at.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so those are just some of the less grandiose stones, but yet still beautiful that we saw. That one is gorgeous. It even has the dog at its master's knee, which I thought was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, is that Jesus?
I think so. And it's like it's a sort of, what do they call the relief style?
Yeah.
So it's all in 3D.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Just some, that was actually, I believe, a gentleman. I looked at it and thought it might be a little girl because it looks kind of princessy, but so yeah, just some beautiful pictures of the cemetery. It was, I will always be very, that's a German immigrant, beautiful stone. I'll always be glad that I went there because it was just, we spent probably 2 hours there, not counting when we got lost, and just drove around, and it was just beautiful. So some really pretty stuff. So that was Graceland Cemetery. And yeah, I like that one too. That was right on a corner. And there's a few other ones too that have ghost stories with them, but obviously you couldn't talk about all of them, but just some really cool ones. Can you imagine how much money those cost?
No.
I can't even. So unbelievable. So that's that. That's Graceland Cemetery.
Hey, I just want to mention before we move on, you may have noticed that we lost Eron for a second.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because they had to go potty. So they
I
got him. Nature was calling. Sorry.
Hope everything came out well.
It did. And the fact that Jared was doing dishes in the kitchen and I was hearing the water.
Oh, God.
Was not helping.
Yeah, no, that doesn't help. I was talking to Todd earlier. We were sending a few messages back and forth. I was running a bath water. I'm like, I don't even know if he can even hear me. So, yeah, that's hard. So let's talk about. Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. Anything for you.
So if you're watching, don't forget, Erin's going to be pulling some cards. We got one more cemetery we're going to walk through, and then they will pull some cards in a little bit. So again, if you know somebody enjoys having tarot pulled, be around for that, cards, and Erin's here to do it for us tonight. So
yes, just a little twofer. We're doing a twofer tonight. I like that. Twofer. So anyways, let's go on to, if you've got Graceland way up here in the prominence, rich people sector, we're going to talk now about Bachelor's Grove Cemetery that is probably right down around here. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. I know. We stopped after we went to Graceland. I've always wanted to go to Bachelor's Grove. Bachelor's Grove is the thing of ghost stories and legends and everything you can imagine scary. And it's in a town called Midlothian, Illinois. And it was about 45 minutes south of Chicago. So after we went to, that's a stock photo. That's not even there anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's not even there anymore. We'll talk a little bit about it, and then I'll give you guys real quick my take on everything there. But Bachelor's Grove has been in many, many, many shows over the years. It's said to be one of the, if not the most haunted cemetery in the Midwest. And it's been bucket list for me. And I said, let's go do it. We're here. Let's go do it. So we did. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery is located in Midlothian near the Rubio Woods Forest Preserve. It's very well known for the paranormal activity and the ghost sightings. There are several legends and stories associated with it as well. The land surrounding Bachelor's Grove Cemetery was originally settled by English homesteaders who relocated to the area from New England, including Stephen Rexford. He was arguably the most well-known of the first wave of Anglo settlers around 1833. The actual cemetery was originally named the Everton Cemetery after the original holder of the property title, Corintha Everton, who purchased the land in 1835. The site saw its first known burials around 1836 and contains 82 lots and 200 graves, some of which were never sold or used. You would never, believe me, you would never know, looking at that cemetery today, that it had 200 graves, 82 lots. Never in a million years. And there's many reasons why. And it's down a trail. So it used to be an actual highway. But in the 1960s, it was closed. It was the Midlothian Turnpike. So we couldn't even find it at first. I literally, as we're driving around, had to Google, how do you find Bachelor's Grove Cemetery? What you have to do is park across the street in the Rubio Woods parking lot, cross this busy highway, then walk down about a quarter of a mile along the highway, and there are two wooden slats, posts, with a chain in front of them, and you can legally go in there. It's just that they don't want people driving in there, but you can walk down there. People ride horses down that way and everything. There's like all these woods, and it's just this trail now. It's not a road. You can see where it was a road, but it's not a road anymore. It's a trail. You have to walk maybe, I don't know, a little more than a quarter of a mile back in the trail before you get to the cemetery. Todd, can you play that video for me?
We're almost to the end of it now. We're almost at the cemetery. I can actually see some of the stones. And I just wanted to let you guys see it for a couple of minutes because it's pretty cool. It's been on all the most terrifying places in America, all those kinds of things. And this is an old road that turned into a path. It's no longer in use. But it's pretty cool. And this cemetery is definitely a bucket list that I'm crossing off today. Always wanted to come here. Always wanted to see this cemetery. Been hearing about it for years. Didn't bring any equipment with me because I just kind of wanted to feel the energy on my own and get a feel for the place. So we're going to check this out and I'll share some pictures with you guys. And then tomorrow we head up to Oshkosh to see Todd, and we'll be with Todd until Sunday, whether he likes it or not. But don't let him fool you because he told me yesterday he's excited. So I'm so excited that we're here. I'm like a little kid. What did you do on your vacation? Oh, we went to Chicago and I visited a bunch of cemeteries, you know, the usual. So check it out. It's very quiet and peaceful here. And I have to find, I think that's the stone over by where Dave is. I think that's the stone where the lady was photographed. Just a quick look. And I'll share some stories, or excuse me, some pictures with everybody too. So I will talk to you guys soon. Hopefully you'll be seeing some lives from Todd and I in the next day or so.
So, as you can see, that obviously does not look like 200 graves.
No. Why does it not look like it?
Well, once the road got closed in the 1960s, it kind of became a place for partying and sort of a lover's lane idea. And due to vandalism, partying, evidence of satanic rituals and grave disturbances, and ghost stories over the years, many of the stones have been either destroyed, moved, or stolen. And it's really sad. Even some of the stones have been taken by the local historical society for safety reasons, to kind of keep them out of harm's way. It is horrible when you go in there. And it's interesting because for the first time, maybe the first time ever, I actually felt energy in a cemetery. And I couldn't really process what I was feeling at the time. And I didn't realize until afterwards the incredible amount of sadness I felt. And of course, I didn't know a lot of what I'm telling you tonight at the time. I did some research after the fact. And what I learned was just horrible. A couple of the stones are actually now at the local historical society. Others that are missing could possibly be at the bottom of a pond that's absolutely disgusting looking. That's next to the cemetery. I did walk down by the pond. There's sort of a trail that goes behind the cemetery. So I walked down there to look at it. It actually is believed that there could be gangster bodies down in that pond. Nobody's ever dragged it. Nobody's ever done anything with it.
Oh my gosh.
So there's probably, Chicago gangsters, Al Capone, and there's probably bodies down there too. So it's just really, really sad to see. This is an article from the Chicago Tribune in 1965. It talks about police investigating vandalism. They found that a fire had been built in the cemetery the day before. A coffin handle and hinge were found in the ashes. Nearby, in freshly turned soil, a coffin was found about 4 inches below the surface. Witnesses told police that teenagers were seen digging in the cemetery. Some families, such as the descendants of John Fulton Jr., have erected new memorial markers at other cemeteries where other family members are buried, and they're leaving the ancestors and the remaining original markers at Bachelor's Grove. But some of them do. Yeah, that's another one that's from 1966. I mean, it's horrible, and it's sad to see those things.
It looks like graffiti on that other tombstone. You're just asking for it.
There's literally, and I have some pictures I'll show you guys later that in a bit, that, I mean, there's literally hardly any stones are left in place the way they were intended to be. There's a lot of notable paranormal activity associated with it, obviously. And I do believe that there is a lot of stuff that does go on. Some of it sounds kind of crazy and, so this is what it's originally supposed to look like. That was what it originally was supposed to look like. That's nothing, absolutely nothing. If you look down on the bottom right, you can see the path coming in, and then the pond in the upper left. It looks absolutely nothing like that today. Nothing. Some of the paranormal activity that has been seen are orbs and phantom light anomalies, phantom vehicles. This is the grave of, this is the Fulton family grave. The White Lady, or the White Madonna, is seen in this area. She's a ghostly woman in white, and she's said to repeatedly visit the grave of her infant child at Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. It's believed that the woman in white could be the ghost of Catherine Vogt Fulton, searching for her baby, Marcia May Fulton, who died in 1914, and is buried under the tombstone. Catherine was born in 1887 and died in 1969. And that's her top left, second in. And that's, I think, around, well, it's really the early 1920s, maybe. So if you go back, just go back a couple, Todd, to that one of me standing and right there. You can see down there, there's a stone that says infant daughter. That's the baby, Marcia. And people bring little toys. And remarkably, those are not disturbed. People bring little toys for the baby. One thing that I did find interesting is that a lot of playing cards were left on graves in there.
That's weird.
Yeah, there was even one in a stump, a tree stump. There was a playing card. And there were dried roses, dead roses laid on some of them. People just, coming to pay their respects and stuff. Another report is of a phantom farmhouse. And that's the one that they think it is. That's the Schmidt family. And that was, I think, 1914. Yeah, 1914. So the farmhouse is said to shimmer, float, and then vanish. Most reports of that one came in the 1950s for some reason. There are also reports of witnesses of the house shrinking as they approach it, then just disappearing altogether. This picture is of the farmhouse of the Schmidt family in 1914. They are buried at Bachelor's Grove as well.
I would love to. That would be an experience that I've not had doing paranormal research, is to have a whole building show up in front of you.
Can you imagine that? And that's been reported a lot. And the interesting thing about that, you guys, is that a lot of people report the same things, but like not everything about that is made public. So how would they all know the same little things in the way that it works?
Right.
So it's really super interesting.
House.
Yeah.
It's a house that's doing the haunting.
And it's interesting because even though some of them differ and some people say one story or two story, that house was added on to several times over the years. So as you can see, there's the first farm, but then to the left in the back, you can see the addition.
Right.
So over the years, there were several additions put on that house.
And that is so typical of houses of that age. As the family would grow or somebody would buy it and need more room, they would just add on to those houses. That happens all the time in houses of that age.
Yeah, the house that I just investigated last weekend was built in 1798, and it was originally a small federal-style house from that time period, but it was huge because they must have built 3 different additions onto it over the years. So it's really interesting. So I don't know, but that's a big one. There's also stuff like 2-headed ghosts, religious monks have been reported, a black dog. The most famous one, though, is the picture of the woman sitting on the grave. That is just amazing. This picture was taken by Jude Huff in 1991. She was with her group investigating. She took it with IR film. So at the time, she didn't see anything.
Right.
She didn't know anything at all until it was actually, developed. And it was taken to experts, too, to make sure it wasn't played around with and tampered with. Nothing. So there is the actual stone, which it looks to me like it's the base of
something, right?
Of something.
Yeah.
I did take several pictures of it because I was hoping that I would get something because I was feeling kind of wonky through the whole cemetery. That's almost the same exact angle of what Jude took at the time. She was just a little bit closer up, but that's almost the same exact angle. I did that on purpose because I wanted to see if there was any way to kind of debunk the picture. But I mean, that's so obvious. It's pretty sad. People think that might be the woman who shows up looking for her daughter, her infant daughter. Yeah. So that's the most famous of all of them. And that is just fascinating to me. I just want to show you guys some pictures because I talk about real people. These are real people who are laid to rest there, and they really deserve respect, and they need names put on them with them. And so I just want to show you guys a few people. This is Dora and Daniel Newman and their children. Dora was born in 1870. She died in 1948 from heart disease. Her husband, Daniel, was born in 1872. He died in 1947. That's their stone. And as you can see, there's the rose left. People do come and show respect. I don't think there's as much respect as there should be, but there are people out there who do come. And if I had known, if I had thought about it, I didn't know what to expect, I would have brought some stuff myself.
I don't think, I just want to say this. I don't think the fact that you went out there and that you cared about the stories and that you did the research, I don't think bringing a rose would be any more respectful than what you've already done. So I think you did the right thing.
I did everything I could. I walked with respect. Of course, there was no way that I could know where anyone was buried. There's just no way of knowing what's empty, what's not empty. When I'm in a regular cemetery where you actually have stones, I I purposely will not walk on where I know there's a grave. That's just the way I am. But there was just no way of knowing where anybody was. The next man, Mr. Foskett, Alva Orlando Foskett, he was born in 1871. And I just messaged Todd the other day and said, oh my God, Todd, I can't believe this. I was on Find a Grave and I was looking up Mr. Foskett to try and find a picture of him, which I couldn't. But he was born in Ilion, New York, which is literally 20 minutes from where I live. And he ended up moving out to Wisconsin and getting married. And he married his first wife, Martha, I believe it was, in 1900. She passed away in 1911. And in 1914, he buried, back up one.
Sorry.
He married his second wife, Caroline, excuse me. And so she is buried with him in that plot. And that's true, Sue. I never thought about that. That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's possible. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit because that's great. That's a great piece of information. So yeah, and a lot of people, it's very common to see many wives in those days because people didn't live that long. And when you had children, you needed a wife to take care of your children. So people would get married quite a bit. Martha is married in a different cemetery in Illinois, but Caroline is with him. And just an aside, Mr. Foskett's father is buried in Herkimer, New York. And his grandfather is in Miller's Mills, New York. So I plan on going out there in the spring and just paying some respects to them as well.
Nice.
The next little one is little Whittemore Hewlett. He was born in 1861, died a year later. And you can see another playing card there. And then the Fullerton family, James Sr., who was a retired farmer, and James Fullerton Jr., and also Private James Fullerton, who is believed to be a Civil War veteran, is buried in that plot. So the list goes on, but those are just some of the people that are buried there. And I wanted to give stories and names to them because, as you can see, they are in really bad shape. Today, though, there is some good news. Starting in 2014, the Forest Preserve cleaned up the site. If you look at pictures from before, it was really, really horribly just neglected. It was absolutely horrible. Now they mow the lawn. They put new portions of the fence in. They repaired the rest. It's maintained. A landscaping service actually mows the cemetery grounds and cleans up branches, removes garbage. There's a garbage can right there. I'm sure there's still a lot of stuff that goes on that shouldn't be going on, but at least they're really, really trying. So I have to give them kudos to that. And I've thought a lot about it as I wrap up here, the sadness that I feel for them. And I still am not sure if I was picking up only on their sadness or if it was my own as well. But there was definitely an energy to that cemetery that I've never felt before. And it also pisses me off because those souls did not have to endure what they've had to endure for over 150 years. The chaos that has happened in their cemetery, where they were laid to rest for eternity. And I just think it's disgusting what people have done over the years. You go with respect. I don't even know if I could do a traditional ghost hunt or paranormal investigation in there.
Yeah, I
don't know.
I think that'd be disrespectful.
It would be completely disrespectful. I would go back, but I would go back the same way I went this time, but even with more respect because I know the stories. And I would just go there and spend some time there.
I wonder if you took a group in to let's say you took like 10 or 15 people in, 20 people in, and did sort of a little service out there. A respectful service of some sort to show respect to it. If that would help, kind of elevate the energy that's there. And just to let them know that people do care and people do think about them.
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think sort of a memorial service, something.
Yeah.
And we don't know for sure that no one's ever done it, but I will tell you that the sadness I felt there was probably more the energy I was picking up on than just my own sadness.
Yeah.
Now I'm angry. Now I'm really angry because I know the stories. But I did ask my pendulum. Vicky will be happy about this. I did ask my pendulum if the spirits knew I was there when I was there, and it said yes. And if they were happy that I was there, and it said yes. And were they happy that I showed them the respect that I showed them, and it said yes. So that made me feel, really good. So
very nice.
But I definitely want to go back, but I don't think, groups still go in there all the time. You have to get a permit to go in there and investigate.
Why would they even allow that? I mean, I have to tell you, why would there even be a permit allowed to investigate?
I don't know.
Freaking money,
I don't know.
These cities.
It makes me angry. It makes me angry to know that there's people. Ghost Adventures was in there.
Of course they were.
Ugh.
Of course they were.
That picture I took of me standing next to the little baby, the Fulton Monument, there is a picture out there of the three of them standing in front of it, trying to look tough. And here's me showing respect and smiling and being like, yes, these are these people deserve this kindness. And the three of them are trying to look all tough.
So I would just want to say this. I showed you some of the monuments I want. If I die, let's say in the next 5 years, and Ghost Adventures is still on the air, please have them investigate my tomb, because I will kick their ass. All right.
I may have to do it too. They drive me nuts.
Look at that.
So that's it.
Look at
Yay!
that. The witching hour.
Woo! I love that. That was
new
great.
podcast with Eron, and that'll be coming soon. In fact, there is a first one out there. You can find it on Spotify and Anchor, and we'll be promoting it on our Facebook page and all that kind of stuff as well, since it's part of the Mind Garden family. So congratulations on that. It took you some time to get that first one out and into the universe. How do you feel about that, though? Like, how are you feeling about that?
I'm getting over having to hear the sound of my own voice.
Don't worry about that. You have a very pleasant demeanor. Yes. And I told you this before, when you've read cards on our podcast, the way you read and the way you explain what the cards mean for that individual is very, very special. You're very good at that. So, I agree. And folks, if you would like to have a
personable experience,
if people would like to have a card pulled tonight, please just let us know in the comments, and Eron will pull a card for the last couple of minutes here. We'll see how many we can get in before we all have had too much time doing this. But I'll tell you what.
Do we have a limit?
A limit for what? Time? No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
Not at all. We're not limited.
If anybody wants to see, I agree with Sue. Can you put up Sue's?
Yeah.
See, I don't investigate cemeteries either.
I'm not saying I never would. Hold on. We did kind of investigate when we went. So, I mean, I can't say that I wouldn't, but I would say it would be done in a very respectful way.
Yes.
It would be done in a very respectful way.
And I'm sorry. I don't think that all of them are disrespectful. I want to put that up there right now. I don't think that they're all disrespectful when they investigate in there, but I think that I think in this particular case, it's not the right thing to be doing, because they have been disturbed and abused and neglected and treated poorly enough over the years that they need to be at rest and not called upon to answer stupid questions like, what's your name and how old are you?
Right.
And what year did you die? And they don't need to be doing that.
Let's be honest. When you investigate, and that's part of the reason why I don't investigate as much as I used to, because I have thought about that even in just everyday situations where you go investigate. If I die and my energy is still around, if I have 100 people asking me what my name is and how I died, listen, I'm going to attach myself to you, and it's not going to be good. You know what I'm
throwing
saying?
Stuff across the room.
There you go.
Right.
No, see, I won't do that because that's what they want. So I'll do just the opposite.
Yep.
I'll wait till they think I'm no longer there, and then I'm going to enter their body and really mess them up. That's what
Make them dance. Make them dance
on somebody's grave.
I'm just going to give them Spectral Wet Willy. Just
there you go. All right. Jared wants a card pulled tonight. Let's do it.
All right, Jared. I can feel you so close to me. So close. Okay, Jared. Your card is the Scythe, which talks about quick, fast separation. Separation from what is familiar and moving on, because of course with the Scythe also comes new growth as well. I'm going to pull another card, and this talks about obstacles, mountains. That's the mountain card, and that talks about obstacles. So far what we're picking up is the Scythe showing up with the obstacle, with the mountain card, is talking about if you want to get past certain obstacles, you have to get away from what's familiar, is what I see right there. And yes, it's going to be challenging, because one of my favorite mantras whenever I'm doing reading is sometimes transition can feel like you're dying, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I went ahead and pulled a third card for you because I like you, and it's the Tower card. And that kind of just confirms what I was saying about what is familiar is giving you challenges. So the Scythe says, separate yourself temporarily from what's familiar if you want growth to come, if you want something new in your life. Not someone new, something new.
I was just going to ask you, because Jared is Aaron's partner. And so my question to you would be like, is that weird for you to pull those cards? Now, I want you to be honest with me. Be honest with me. Like in the back of your mind, in any way, shape, or form, you're like, oh my God, it's over for us.
No, because I know how things go whenever the cameras turn off.
Yeah, we'll just keep it that way. You just keep that to yourself. Betsy would like a card pulled tonight, please.
Betsy, one of our favorite people.
All right, Betsy. Okay, Betsy, your first card is the Scourge or the Whip. And that is talking about, what I see right there is beating yourself up over a situation that's not your fault, that you thought you had control in, but you actually don't have control in. So it's really not your fault. Especially somebody gaslit you, if you're familiar with that. Somebody made you believe that it was your fault. The next card after that makes me think that is the Gentleman card. So beating yourself up over the thoughts and treatment of another person. So that just confirms that somebody really, really put you on a guilt trip, and it still bothers you to this day. The third card is the Lilies, and lilies are my favorite card because I get to use the word bullshit whenever I'm doing readings, because cards like this don't grow without excessive amounts of bullshit. So what this is talking about is letting these things go. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, you go for it. Yep.
Okay. What this is talking about right here is about letting these things go and moving on from things that have died, because lilies are also funerary flowers. And so if you want to bloom, Betsy, and move into new seasons of energy, is let go of somebody else's perception of a situation that you had no control over. I hope that helps, Betsy.
That was good.
Very good. Adam, first time watching. Love a card pulled.
Thanks, Adam.
Let's see. So who was asking for a card before Adam?
That was I'm sorry, that was Renee. That's right.
Oh.
Renee.
Okay, Renee. Then after that, I'll get Adam.
Okay. Betsy says thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. Renee, your first card is the Mice, and what comes to mind is anxiety. Your next card is the Child. So what this is talking about right here so far with the Mice and the Child popping up is that it's talking about sort of anxiety, or those the mice represent those things that sit there and just chew at you, especially at night, whenever you're lying there in your bed, whenever you're trying to sit there and think, and you've got these things, the back of your mind just, and the Child card showing up next to that represents a new beginning. So it feels like anxiousness about a new situation is what I see coming up, or is already starting to happen for you. And your third card after that is the Letter, which sort of represents correspondence. So I feel like you have butterflies in your stomach. It's kind of funny because the child on this card is chasing a butterfly about some correspondence that you're going to receive or have already received. So it's nervousness about a new situation, which new situations can always be very nerve-wracking, but don't worry about it, because it's within your ability to be able to perform what you need to perform, because this is actually something you have done before. It's just like Jared I was reading for earlier, is sometimes you have to get away from what's familiar to get a result you've never had. I hope that helps.
Very good.
Very good.
And Adam
with a bonus episode tonight, because we're a little bit longer than we normally are.
And we were going to make him stick around and do an after the live cast too. And I don't know if his bladder's so small.
I know.
Teeny tiny bladder.
I know. Sometimes just nature calls. You got to pick up. Adam, your first card is the snake.
Ooh.
What is with all these cards popping up? What are you people doing? The next card after that is the ring.
Any relationship to the movie The Ring?
The third card after that is the fox. So the snake, the ring, and the fox. The snake represent those people. What I can gather from this reading right here, Adam, is use your intuition whenever it comes to making commitments to people. If somebody makes you feel like they are trying to sell you a bill of goods that they have no intention on filling in, be wary of that, because you've got the snake, the ring, and the fox, which are to indicate they're very, very sneaky people around you, and be careful who you give your trust and your faith to. And I'm typically not a doomer and a gloomer whenever it comes to readings, but I've never pulled this card combination before. So just use your discernment whenever it comes to making commitments and promises to people around you. Okay?
Very good.
Sounds good. Susan.
Sue.
For you, Susan, absolutely. There's a lot of energy around that woman.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Susan, your first card is the book. Your next card is the star. And your next card after that is the clover. What this talks about right here is you've gone through a season. Your spirit guides have taken you on a season where you've learned about yourself, and you've learned to have faith. You've learned to have faith in your own abilities to manifest. That's what I see right there with the clover card. Because you see clover and you think, oh, great, this is good. This is good stuff. I'm going to have good luck. But to me, the clover card means that you create your own luck, Susan. And with the star showing up is that you've been awoken to that ability. You've learned that about yourself. With the book showing up is that you've also learned about different facets of your personality, and of also different facets of your soul that you've never been aware of before either. So just trust the experience you're going through. It can seem kind of freaky, but at the end of the day, what's happened to you, Susan, is that you are manifesting the reality that you're hoping for, and it can be really scary whenever that starts to happen, be it good or bad. I hope that helps.
Very good.
All right. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ask for one.
Oh.
It's been a long time since I've asked Erin to pull a card.
Yep.
I can do that for you, even for you, Todd.
I appreciate that.
Screw you, Todd.
Exactly.
Todd, your first card is also the book. Y'all saw me put it back in the stack, and it made its way back out again. And your next card is the heart. And your next card is the fish. So the book, The Heart and the Fish. What this is talking about right here is being true to your emotions. Whenever the book shows up, it's learning about yourself and learning about who you are and what your boundaries are emotionally. The fish showing up next to that represents prosperity. And it's telling you what's going to happen when you actually start honoring the boundaries you've set for other people and that you've also set for yourself. Because the fish represents usually like money, physical prosperity. But what this is talking about is like spiritual and mental prosperity that comes with keeping people where they need to belong, having people who should be held close, and not just letting anybody walk in on your energy. That's what we can gather from that. Except for me, I can just walk in and out on either one of you.
See, you were the first person that came to mind that I've got to put the old walls up on, the old X factor.
Well, you're just out of luck because I got a ladder.
Great.
Oh, that's just wonderful. All right, Erin, you want to give me one quick, and then we'll say goodnight to everybody?
Sure.
Oh, and Jay was asking for one, too.
Okay.
And who?
Jason.
Oh, okay. All right, Sandy, because ladies first. Oh.
You call that a lady?
Screw you, Todd.
Okay, Sandy. Your first card is the Mountain.
Why is Jared laughing at me?
Your next card is the Moon.
I heard that too. That was
I know.
Great.
And your next card after that is the Coffin.
All right. Ooh.
Blah, blah.
What this talks about is a lot of overcoming a lot of emotional obstacles, especially whenever it comes to your thought life, which is represented by the Moon card. And the Mountain card showing up next to that kind of says that you've surmounted some issues from like your young adult life to like your childhood and stuff like that. But the Coffin showing up, that represents an end. So you're managing to deal with some very heavy things just so you can move forward in your life. That's what I can gather from that. And the quick little blurb that I have is standing atop some emotional mountaintops, and it's a great place to be.
That's awesome. That's what I'm doing. Oh, I say it even more than when we're on the podcast. Don't worry. Thank you, Erin. That actually is dead on. No pun intended. Coffin card.
Blah, blah.
Blah, blah.
And I understand because Todd giving you emotional issues because having to work with him.
All the time.
Listen, I'm a podcast baron, just so you know.
I will say this, though. He is with me every step of the way when I have issues, when things are going on for me. He's with me every step of the way.
I thought you were going to say that I was a genius. I was going to say yes.
I couldn't ask for a better best friend, really.
So we've got a pull for Jason. Is that right, Jason?
Yep.
All right, Jason. Your first card is the Crossroads. Your next card is the Book.
Oh, that
book thing keeps coming up tonight.
I know.
It is. People just learning. With the Crossroads showing up next to the Book, that kind of symbolizes you're standing at the crossroads having to make a decision. And with the Book, it kind of represents learning and trusting your experience to be able to make this decision. And here's another card that keeps popping up is the Scourge or the Whip. And it's kind of a decision that's going to be difficult to make. So what we can draw from this little 3-card draw right here is trust the experience that you have accumulated over time in this particular situation to be able to make this decision, because that's what's going to guide you down the best road for your particular situation. I said situation a bunch, so that's kind of what that means, is trust your experience. I hope that helps.
Very good.
It works. All right, so tell us, how often are you going to have this podcast for us?
I want the Witching Hour to come out right now because I have a full-time job. I know, boo, adulting. I want the podcast to come out around 3 times a month.
Okay.
That's my goal, because
Mhm.
with this new job, I actually have set hours and weekends off, and I know it's going to require work, but that's going to be easier for me as we go into the holidays, like the less spoopy holidays. You guys can't see it, but I just had this big shower of spit come out of my.
I actually heard it. I heard it come through.
I don't know. I was oblivious
I bet you did,
to
Mr.
it.
Magoo.
Well, you know what they say, when you can't see as well, your other senses are, So he probably heard it. He really did.
But I want to have it out 3 times a month, and I'm going to be busy writing and torturing Sandy and Todd. Well, I especially like torturing Todd. And Sandy a little bit. But it's so I just want to put out a resource for you guys, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, we're actually really excited too, because I think this, much like the Sandy and Toddcast and the Apothecary podcast, this is a good resource for people who want to learn more, might not know very much at all, but this is their way of sort of taking that deep dive into it and learning as much as they can to decide if they might want to join that kind of a community.
Mm-hmm. And even if they don't, it's just something that they can have in their toolbox. You know what I mean? In case they have like a loved one, or
yes, without a doubt.
Heck, if they just want to ask questions for the sake of asking questions, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I love to talk about it all the time.
Right. Very
wonderful. Good. Well, thank you for joining us. Thanks for being on the panel with the Cemetery Talk, and for pulling a couple of cards, but also very glad your podcast is coming along, and we should make sure and share that on our Facebook page too for him.
Yeah, we? I think we have it on there.
Okay, maybe we do. I don't.
If we don't,
you're in charge of that.
I'll put it up there. I'll make sure we get it up there too.
If you don't get it up there, Todd, I'm going to bury you in a shoebox.
With all the cement and stuff like that.
That's
Erin,
lovely.
Thanks a lot. Stay there.
Thank
don't
you.
go anywhere.
All right.
Between you and they, I don't know who's worse tonight.
What did I do? I didn't even do anything wrong tonight.
Oh, you guys were just piling on to me tonight, which is fine. Trust me, but here's the thing. Listen. It's fine, but just know I sit in the shadows waiting.
Listen,
and
you started it by telling us that your whole contact lens story. You started it.
What do you want? You needed to know. You needed to know.
It's true. You did pretty good. You only had to kind of like back up a couple times.
Well, I'm reading script. I'm picking pictures up. I'm putting up people's comments. I'm trying to find videos.
Honestly, I'm pretty proud of you.
I'm doing this while you're reading a script.
I know.
Starting in 2014, the Forest Preserve cleaned up the site.
If I don't write it down, I'll never remember all of it. I knew most of it, but I just knew most of it because I soak in this stuff. I love this stuff, but some of it I would never have remembered. So I always have to do like a little script for myself. I'm not one of those bullet point people. I actually have to write my stuff out. So,
hey, next week we've got a very special live cast.
So excited for this one. Next week, November 10th, Dean McMurray will be joining us. He's known as the military medium. He works a lot with veterans to help them. And he is going to be absolutely fascinating. I just talked to him briefly today to reconfirm that he'll be with us next week. So everybody really look forward to that, because it's going to be a wonderful evening.
So Thursday is Veterans Day. Wednesday, we're having the special live cast.
Right.
And I can't wait to hear his stories and find out basically how he discovered his talents, his gifts, and how he uses them to help. I think that's the best thing when you've got talents and you've got gifts and you can do certain things, how you use those to help other people. So
it's great. And it's things that you don't normally think of in helping the veterans. Dave and I toured a wonderful place called Clear Path for Veterans a handful of years ago. We had started a gifting group for Christmas for needy people, and we wanted to help the veterans. So they gave us a tour, and it turned out they're just amazing and they could have helped us. But one of the things they did is licensed massage therapists would go there and give the veterans therapeutic massage and do nice things for them, all for free.
Wonderful.
And it's the unusual talents that people have that you don't think about being able to help these veterans. It just speaks to my soul. I think it's amazing. So we'll hear from Dean McMurray next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And it's going to be really great.
Find the podcast everywhere. Join us on Facebook. Search for the Sandy and Toddcast. And join the group. Stay Weirdos, friends of the Sandy and Toddcast as well. We just got so much going on. Empathicary podcast. Now, Erin's podcast.
A new one of those. The Empathicary should be out in the next handful of days. Yeah. Yep. And so we've got a lot going on. So be watching for Mind Garden Media, our company that we're starting to umbrella some people under. And Erin is actually officially our first person under that.
And we got another group coming very soon.
And we have another group coming
yet,
soon. We're not going to spoil the surprise, but we have another group coming under Mind Garden too. So be looking for that.
All right. We'll let you go. It's been a long podcast. Thanks so much for sticking around. Have a great night.
Bye.